good evening, everybody. Welcome to our game-changing webinar for SBL for June 2023 attempt. My name is Hasan Dossani, and I hope you guys are keeping well. Thank you very much for joining tonight's session. And I think we should start now. So, what is our plan for these 2 days webinar? So we will just briefly discuss about SBL, a quick introduction. I will also talk about the September 2023 changes to the SBL paper because a lot of students are confused. So I will just spend like 5 minutes explaining those changes. We will cover all the exam techniques. We will cover the professional skills. We will talk about all the formats applicable in SBL paper. We will touch upon technical articles. We will be solving a couple of questions. I will be sharing the list of important topics. And most importantly, I will also share the study plan for the last 3 weeks. Now, I have a huge a bonus for you tonight. You know, we will also have a chat with the global prize winner of SBL for the previous attempt. His name is Rahul Bikram. And can you believe he scored 92 marks in SBL in previous attempt? Yes, you heard me right. 92 marks in SBL in the previous attempt. He is a global prize winner, and I've managed to got hold of him, and he has agreed to talk about his approach, his experience, so that you guys can benefit from it. Isn't that wonderful? 92 marks, right? So, today after the break, I will, take on Rahul for a discussion, let's say approximately 1.5 hours from now. All right. All right. Although this webinar is important, but you must understand that we will not be able to cover everything under this webinar, right? So after this June webinar, it is mandatory that you watch the following webinars for complete coverage of SBL. You can start by September 2021 webinar, in which I have covered most of the important topics. Then you can do December 2021 webinar, in which I have solved a full case study. It is called NEBI. Then you can watch March 2022 webinar, in which I have solved a full case study called TT4U. And other than this, if you get time, do take a look at this last 2 webinars for additional, coverage for questions, right? This is most relevant to the self-study students, that you must watch tonight's webinar plus all these webinars to give you a comprehensive coverage of the topic, of the subject. Well, this webinar is all about questions, okay? So how can you ask questions? You can type your questions in the chat box, and after every couple of slides, I will stop, I will go through the questions and I will address them. However, please do keep in mind that your questions should relate to the topic under discussion. So whatever slides we are discussing, your questions should be relevant to those slides only. Any general questions I will take at the end of the webinar. Is that clear? Okay. All these previous webinars are available, A, in my Google Drive, B, they are all on YouTube. You just Google them and you will find them, okay? A very quick introduction of myself. I am a fellow chartered accountant. I qualified way back in 1999. And currently, I'm the CFO of an insurance company based in Dubai. Guys, please mute. Guys, please keep yourself mute all the time, okay? Otherwise, I'll have to block you out. So, I've been working for last 25 years and I've been the CFO for almost like 12 years now. I sit in the boardroom. I involve in strategy discussions. So I think it's a bit easier for me to give examples for the SBL scenarios. What's most important is this is my WhatsApp number. So those of you who do not have my number, please save it and you can message me in case you need any help, okay? I'm also managing a global WhatsApp group. And if you are not part of any global WhatsApp group, then please message on this number. And I will also share the link here on the chat box. You can click on it and join now as well, okay? A quick look at the passing rate for SBL. So March attempt, it was 50%. And then basically since last 7 or 8 attempts, the passing rate is between 49 to 51%, which is actually not bad. If you compare this with other strategic professional level papers, SBL has one of the highest passing rates, which is good news. SBL is very, very different. So this slide, especially those students who are joining, doing SBL for the first time, I will very quickly go through this because I have been covering this in all my orientation classes. So SBL is basically a one integrated case study paper. What is the meaning of integrated case study? That one scenario will be given and all the questions will pertain to that particular scenario, right? There will be around 6 to 8 exhibits and there will be a list of requirements. It is right now the longest paper of ACCA. It is 4 hours. So none of your existing papers are 4 hours, right? How is this a challenge? Yes, it is a challenge because, it requires a lot of physical stamina as well as mental stamina to focus continuously for straight 4 hours. And how you can overcome this? The only way you can overcome this is by giving 4-hour exam-based, time-based mocks. The more mocks you will do under exam conditions, the more stamina and temperament you will develop, right? The third thing is 20 marks for professional skills. So it's a 100-mark paper, and out of that, 20 marks is professional skills. Can I say that 20% of your marks, 20% of your paper is professional skills? Yes, 20 out of 100. So it's absolutely important to be very well versed with the professional skills, and we should really focus on grabbing the professional skills marks as much as we can, because I believe that these are relatively easier to catch. Okay, so we will cover professional skills today. There is less emphasis on models. So yes, if we can use models, it's good. But if we don't know the model and if we give a logical answer without referring to a model, that is acceptable in SBL. So I think that's good news, right? Then there are so many formats involved in SBL, like reports, briefing notes, memos, slides, press release, emails, letters. So you have to be very, very familiar with all these formats, not only familiar, but your speed should be very fast so that you don't waste a lot of time in just drawing the format. And lastly, what makes SBL very different from all the other papers is this one. I believe almost 50% of the paper is common sense, especially the last few attempts. I'm seeing a lot of questions which are common sense. Now, what do I mean by a common sense paper? A common sense paper or a common sense question is basically, it is a question which does not pertain to any particular topic. You cannot pinpoint which chapter or which syllabus is it pertaining to. You will have to give your answers using the information from the exhibits and applying your common sense thinking. Now, this is good news for some students, and this is bad news for some students, right? So students who are street smart, who have higher IQ, they will be able to apply common sense and find out logical solutions. But for students who are more theoretical, they rely on books, they rely on chapters, they rely on definitions, they rely on models. Those breed will struggle a bit because, you know, these questions do not pertain to any chapter. So you have to really improve your common sense thinking so that you're able to attempt these kind of questions, right? And it can only come through practicing these questions. There are so many questions in your past papers which are common sense questions. So we'll have to do that, okay? So let me just go through the chat box. Yeah, no major issues. Yes, the webinars are basically for self-study students. So those students who are already in my regular batch, I will be covering everything with you in the live classes, right? Okay. So now the question is, why students fail SBL? It's $1 million question. So, you know, it's very important to understand what are the risk areas where students might fail. So this list is based on the examiner's comments. You know, every time the examiner shares detailed comments, and this list is basically based from the examiner's point of view, where he feels that students are lacking. And secondly, this list is also in order of sequence. So the first and foremost and most common reason as per the examiner is that, you know, answers not linked with the exhibits. This is the biggest complaint examiner has. That students, they try to give theoretical answers, they try to give general answers, and do not link their answers with the exhibits. Their answers are not according to the scenario given to them. So it's absolutely necessary that whatever you are drafting should be linked with the information available in the exhibit and should be in accordance with the case study given to you. There is no room for a general or theoretical answer. I hope you understand that, right? And this is where a lot of students, they struggle how to link the answer. And I will cover this tonight in the scenario, in our practice question, right? The second issue is, as per examiner, that a lot of students, they merely copy paste materials from the exhibit without adding own comments or explaining why the point is important or relevant. So thanks to the CBE platform, now you can easily copy and paste, right? So what some brilliant students are doing, they just copy the entire exhibit as answer and move on. They will not get marks. Yes, you should copy some relevant information. That's important because you need to link with the scenario, but then just copy pasting is not enough. You will need to elaborate on that point. You will need to add some sentences from your own explaining that point and talking about its impact or consequence on the business. So you will need to, add your own comments in each and every paragraph. Okay. And then overspending time on one particular question. This is a problem which I've seen with majority of the students. They tend to overspend the time in one particular question. So those of you who have given SBL before, have you faced this situation? Did you overspend time in any one particular question? Yes or no? Yeah. Yes. It happens. It's natural. And what I call it? I call it time trap. Yeah, it's mentioned here. It's a time trap. So when you fall into the trap, you overspend the time on one particular question. So what will happen is then, you will have less time for the remainder questions. And in the end, most likely, you will not be able to finish the paper. You might miss out 10 marks or 15 marks because you spent overtime or, extra time in some other question. It's a time trap. And because of point number 3, then most students are not able to complete the entire paper because they fell into the time trap. You understand? Point number 3 and point number 4 are connected. And then some students have poor technical knowledge and poor professional skills knowledge. They are not well prepared. They don't know the basic concepts. They are not applying the professional skills. They are not demonstrating the professional skills. So they are losing 20 marks for professional skills. Sometimes insufficient number of points according to the marks. And then most students not doing practice/mocks on the CBE platform. You see, it's very, very important that you practice or solve questions directly on the CBE platform so that you are well versed with the software. You do not struggle with the speed. Okay. And then weak typing and formatting skills. So I know a lot of students have typing issues, but that's okay. The examiner understands there is no spell check option in the CBE platform, right? So there will be typo errors, that's fine, but up to an acceptable level. If you're making typo errors in every sentence, every fourth word, of course, the examiner will get slightly pissed off. So if you notice here, is there a typo error here? Do you notice a typo error here? Weak typing and formatting skills. Yeah. So I also made a typo error, but none of you noticed it, right? So it's acceptable up to a reasonable level. Got it? So these are the most common reasons why students, they fail SBL as per the examiner. But of course, the first 4 is the most important. So, and I just hope and wish and pray that all of you are mindful and careful about these risk areas, and you should not do these errors. Okay. Right, let's move on. So another quick slide. Just this slide is for resit students. For resit students, is just a guide based on my experience that those students who obtained less than 45 marks, I feel that you don't have sufficient technical knowledge. Your concepts are not very strong. You need to improve your theoretical knowledge. Okay. And those students who obtain between 45 to 49 marks, I think that you have sufficient theoretical or technical knowledge. Your concepts are good, but you either did not practice enough, or you were struggling with drafting, or bad time management, or you did not give mocks. So basically, you did not apply the exam techniques properly. So you can, those of you who are doing a reset, this chart will help you self-analyze your weak areas, right? And those of you who score 49, I would say it's pure bad luck. It's actually impossible to identify your mistake at 49 because you just needed one more mark. We don't know what went wrong. So it's pure bad luck. Don't shatter your confidence. Next time it will be better luck, right? 49 twice. Oh my God, that's so painful. 46 twice. So 46 shows that you lack sufficient practice or you are lacking the exam techniques. But 49 is probably more. All right. So now I just want to quickly touch upon the exam changes. Exam changes from September 2023. I know most of you are planning for June. Some of you might be planning for September. So just for information purposes, just I need to spend 5 minutes. So the first thing is there is no change in the syllabus. That's important to understand. There is no change in the syllabus. Only the paper pattern is changing. Okay, so nothing to worry about. The syllabus is the same. So what is changing in the paper? The case study will be published 2 weeks before the exam. So from September onward, the whatever scenario will come in your exam, it will be given to you. It will be shared by you 2 weeks before the paper. Okay, not the entire question paper, I wish, but the main background about the company and some important information. Exhibits and requirements will be given on the exam day, obviously. They have reduced the number of exhibits because they will now provide majority of the information beforehand. So they have reduced the number of exhibits. Only 3 questions will be there. Right now, there are sometimes 4, there are sometimes 5, but only 3 questions will be there. And exam time is reduced to 3 hours and 15 minutes. So that's kind of good news because 4 hours paper required a lot of stamina, right? And why do you think they've reduced the hours? A lot of students are asking me, oh shit, the time has been reduced. Of course, yes, stupid. Because they will share the entire, not the entire, but the majority of the case study with you 2 weeks before. So you're expected to read it before you come to the exam, right? So because they are sharing the majority of the case study 2 weeks before, you will not be required to read them again, right? So that is why they've reduced 45 minutes because they are sharing the case study in advance. There will be just 3 questions. There will be less number of exhibits. So they feel that 3 hours, 15 minutes is okay, right? Understood? Now, there are certain pros and cons of this. As with any kind of change, there are some benefits and there are some risks. What are the pros of this changes in September? You will know which industry is case study from, right? So every now, at this moment, we don't know which industry will the case study come from, right? It can be from a manufacturing, it can be from a charitable organization, it can be from a fitness club. or service industry, IT firm, no idea. So that surprise or shock factor will no more be there, because we will know the case study 2 weeks before. So we will know what is the scenario about, what is the industry. So we can try to predict possible questions beforehand. So we can, try to, brainstorm it. We can talk about Pestle, Porter, whatever we can think of, because we now know the scenario. So we will build the groundwork before we go into the exam. However, there are certain disadvantages as well. No past papers available for this type. So we really don't know how much information will they share 2 weeks before and how much information will they withhold, right? We don't know. We will find out in September what is the actual approach. And because it's a new thing, the first couple of attempts will be a learning curve. The students will be learning, the tutors will be learning the approach, the pattern. So September attempt, December attempt will be more of a learning experience. So now it's up to you. You look at the pros and the cons and you decide whichever suits you, right? So I just thought I will, just briefly go through the changes so that there is no misconception and what are the pros and cons. Let me go through the questions. Guys, can you stop chatting with each other during the webinar and focus on what I am talking about, right? Do not share your experience on the chat, please, because you're flooding my chat box unnecessarily. Vakar, ACCA will not conduct any webinar for teachers on the new formats. Very interesting. So far, I'm not aware of any such webinar. If it is conducted, I will be the first one to attend it and then share my experience. But in my experience, this approach, it is, what is this called? This approach, basically, this approach is called pre-scene. Pre-scene means that the case study is published in advance. This is a very old thing, like SIMA is already doing this, and ICAW is doing this for so many years. ACCA has been slow to adopt it, and it was getting a bit outdated. So now they've also adopted this strategy. So my experience is pre-scene is generally easier as compared to what we are doing right now. But yes, because it's the initial attempts, the September and December, there will be some risk factors, some learning curve involved. Okay. Just a minute, guys. Okay, so are you guys now ready for solving a question? Yes? No, you are not ready. You are not ready as of now. Why? I'll tell you. Formats. Almost all questions in your SBL requires a certain format. Okay, there are formats required, various types of format. So my regular students are already aware of most of the formats because we have been doing it in the live classes. But I just want to recap all the formats so that we are all on the same page. Do you agree? Do you want to go through all the formats in one go so that we are all aligned? Excellent. So the most common format is called report. Okay. Or actually, this is the most common one is report or a briefing paper, or sometimes the examiner says briefing note. Sometimes he says memo. So these are the most common ones, either a report, either a briefing paper, a briefing note, or a memo. So just to simplify your life in your under exam conditions, I have made one format which can fit into all these four. Okay, so this is the format. To the addressee. From here you will mention your role. Subject, you can copy the keywords from the requirement. What is the subject? Date, you can write today, TODAY, today. Do not type in the exam date or something, because the examiner doesn't like the actual exam date. Just write today. Okay, then leave one line and then give a heading introduction. Okay, and then you can say this report or briefing paper or briefing note or memo, whichever is applicable in that question. And then you can copy the requirement from the question to draft your introduction. Is this clear? And then, so this part is basically very standard, very straightforward: to, from, subject, date, introduction. And then from here onward, your real answer will start. Your technical requirement will start. If it is pastel, you can start giving your headings like political, economy, social, and so forth. And then towards the end, when you finish your answer, you have to write the closure. The closure is best regards, and then your role. This is called closure. Okay. So this is the opening part. This is the closing part, and the middle part is where your actual answer linked with the scenario will be. Right now, do we need to give conclusions or recommendations? No, you should not give conclusions or recommendations unless specifically asked in the question. Do not voluntarily try to give a conclusion or recommendation in the end if the question does not ask you specifically. Is that clear? So if you master this format, you will be basically be able to, it covers your reports, briefing paper, briefing note, or memo. All right, let me go through the questions. Zainab, forget about it. Just follow this format, plain and simple. Okay. Yes, under the date, just type today, the word TODAY. That's what the examiner has been suggesting. All right. Make sure that your speed, you should practice so much that your speed to make the format is really fast, because we really cannot afford to give extra time to the formats, right? Your speed should be there. To, from, subject, date, introduction, closure. Okay, and most of them are copy pasting. Right. Now, sometimes the examiner says draft a section of a report. So he doesn't want a report. He's just asking you to draft a section of a report. That's very simple. Actually, the most simple. You just give the heading section of a report, just like this. Give a small introduction, just the way we do in the report. One small paragraph on introduction, and that's it. And then from here onward, you just start typing your answer. Nothing else. No closure, no nothing. Just the main heading, just the introduction, and then the body of your answer. Okay, very simple. Then sometimes he says draft an email. So again, very much similar. You give the heading email, to, from, subject, date, Then the opening paragraph is this email, and then you can copy paste from the requirement what this email is all about. And then the body of your answer, the real answer from here, and the closure. Okay, very similar to the report format. It's just that here there is no word introduction, rest is all same, right? So this time I've tried to simplify all the formats so that you don't get confused and do not waste extra time on, managing various formats. Now, several times the examiner has asked to prepare presentation slides. So, if you are familiar with your CBE platform, there are 3 response tools. So there's a word response tool where you can type your answers. Then there's an Excel template, and then there is a presentation slide template. Okay. So whenever there's a question on presentation, like whenever the examiner says make a presentation, then you have to use the presentation slide template in your CBE platform. When you will click on the presentation slide, there will be 2 portions. Okay, the first portion will be the actual slide, and then underneath the actual slide, the second portion will be called supporting notes or accompanying notes. All right, so always remember when you are making a slide, there are 2 portions. How many portions? How many portions? Whenever you are making a slide, how many portions are there? There are 2 portions. The first portion is the actual slide, and the second portion is basically the supporting notes or accompanying notes, whatever it, the examiner uses. Now, why there is 2 portions? So the slide is basically, it just covers the bullet points. It just covers the headings. There is no explanation in the slide. What's the purpose of a slide, right? When you're making a presentation, the board is sitting, you're making a presentation. So you cannot write stories and stories inside the slide, right? The whole objective of a slide is just to have bullet talking points. Where is the explanation? The explanation of these bullets are in this portion, which is called supporting notes. So if you look at my presentation, you see, look at this page. This is a presentation. Why? Because it is in bullets. I am not writing or writing stories or explaining these. These are just concise bullet points. So this is actually the presentation slide. And whatever I'm talking and whenever I'm explaining these points, those explanations are part of the supporting notes or accompanying notes. Is that clear? So when you click on the CBE platform, you will see 2 portions. One is the slide itself. So the slide will be just bullet points. You see, high turnover, low staff morale, salary is not aligned. And where will you explain these points? Where will you link these points with the exhibits? So you can do it here. So for example, there are 3 bullets. So I expect 3 small paragraphs under supporting note. Each paragraph will be explaining each bullet. Okay. Any questions? Presentation slide is clear. How many marks I will cover to that? I will come to that. Okay, very few times the examiner has asked you to draft a letter. I think just 2 times in last 3 years. But nonetheless, you need to be familiar with the format. So again, you will give a simple heading letter, date, and then the addressee, who you are addressing to, like the chairman, the name of the company, the country, you will write the subject, you will do the salutation, respected chairman or something, this letter, and then you can, that's an introductory paragraph, and then the actual body of the answer, and then the closure. Okay, I have shared these slides on the WhatsApp group, so you can save it or take a printout so that you can look at the formats again and again so that you remember them, right? Then I think 1 or 2 times in the last 3 years, the examiner has asked you to draft a press release or basically a press release. So again, you will give the heading press release. You will give the subject, what the press release is about, the name of the chairman, like who is releasing this, the name of the company and the date. And this will be the starting. Through this press release, we would like to share our views regarding, and then the actual body of your answer. And you can give this as closure. Okay, just have a look at this. What is a press release? Basically, a press release is something which the company publish in the newspaper for the public. So your tone should be very professional, very balanced. So you will have to, when you're writing something in the newspaper about the company, then this is the format we usually follow, right? Then there's something called business case. Draft a business case. This has never been tested so far. It comes under the topic project management, but still, if you are required to draft a business case, there are 3 broad headings: the current situation, what is the proposed options or solutions, and then what are the benefits of the proposed solutions. Okay, just remember these 3 headings: current situation, what are the options, and then you elaborate more on the options, like their benefits, how it will solve the problem. But this has never been tested so far. Project initiation document. Again, this is a very specific document under project management. So far, it has not been tested. Like you have not been asked to draft a PID. But there has been 1 or 2 questions on PID in a different style. But what are the contents of a PID? So these are basically the contents of a PID. So you will need to remember the contents, like there should be scope and objective mentioned in the project initiation document, followed by cost benefit, project sponsor, project manager, project team, other stakeholders, duration, key risks, constraints, project. So this is a whole topic in its own. But I just thought I'll summarize the format here. The self-study students, I've covered this in one of my previous webinars. So if you go through all my previous webinars, you will find a detailed lecture and question solving on this topic, right? Please, guys, ask questions relevant to the slide. Any general questions, I will take it in the end. Okay, lastly, in almost every paper, almost 95% of your paper, you will get a question on either this or both. I will repeat, 95% of, in all the previous attempt, almost every paper except for maybe 1 paper, you will always get a question on either this or both. So, just try to understand the importance of this. So what is this? Identify weakness and give recommendation. You get this question in almost every paper. that they will give you some information and you will be asked to identify the weaknesses and then to give recommendation. So when you see this kind of a question, I always suggest that you use a tabular format, a 2-column table. On left side, you explain the weakness and its consequence or impact. And on the right side, you give your recommendations, how it can be fixed or addressed. So a tabular format will make it fast, will make it more structured and easy to draft. Okay. Very similar to this is the next topic, which is identify risk and give recommendations. So sometimes the examiner will say, evaluate this risk and give recommendation. So again, very simple format, a 2-column table. On the left side, we will talk about the risks, its consequence, its impact. And on the right-hand side, we talk about the mitigation factors or recommendation, how we can minimize or address those risks. So whenever you get these kind of questions, identify weakness and give recommendation, or identify risk and give recommendation, do try to use a tabular format. Is this clear? Okay. So now I have touched upon all the formats: report, briefing paper, briefing note, memo, section of a report, presentation slide, press release, PID, weakness recommendation, risk recommendation. All right. So now are you guys ready? Should we start a question? No. Still one very important thing is missing. You remember what is 20% of your paper? In the start, I had mentioned something is 20% of your paper. What's that? Professional skills. 20 marks out of 100. So let's cash marks. Absolutely, yes. Professional skills is cash marks. What do I mean by cash marks? It is generally easy to grab it. It is low-hanging fruits. So if you really focus and sharply demonstrate professional skills in your drafting, you can easily score good marks. So if you are able to score like 13 marks out of 20 or 14 marks, or in fact, or even 15 marks out of 20, you have a great start, right? So I insist that, my students should really focus and sharpen their professional skills marks. The good news is that, your syllabus has clearly defined what are the professional skills. So there are basically 5 professional skills which you need to demonstrate in the paper. The first one is evaluation skill. The second one is analysis skill. The third one is communication skill. The fourth one is commercial acumen skill. And the fifth one is skepticism skills. Where is the, yeah, okay. The good news is that you don't have to demonstrate all the skills simultaneously in all the questions. I repeat, the good news is that you don't have to demonstrate all the skills simultaneously throughout the paper. No. For each and every question, the examiner will specifically tell you which particular skill you need to demonstrate. So in one question, he will tell you, demonstrate evaluation skill. Halas. Then you just focus on demonstrating evaluation skill. In the next question, he will ask you to demonstrate analysis skills. So in that question, you just focus on demonstrating analysis skills. So for each question, the examiner will exactly tell you which skills he wants to see. And then you just focus on that skill, right? Is that clear? Okay. So now I'll tell you what each skill means and what you need to do in order to score high marks. So evaluation skill is basically, the examiners will say demonstrate evaluation skill. I will not go into lengthy explanations, but what I will just tell you is a very to the point what you need to do from exam point of view. Whenever you see the word evaluation skill, just make sure that you cover both pros and cons in your answer. Normally, evaluation skills are expected in a question where they are thinking of something and they want to decide. So they want to know the pros and the cons. So for example, this September 2023 changes in SBL, right? So I covered both the pros and the cons. So that was evaluation skill. So if you want to score high on your evaluation skills, just make sure that you include positive points as well as negative points in your answer. That's it. Now, I have a question. Let's say you are supposed to write 8 points, okay? According to the marks, let's say, assume that you are supposed to write 8 points. So does it mean 4 points should be positive and 4 points should be negative? Yes or no? Absolutely correct. No, it basically depends on the availability of the information. So when we will read the exhibit, it all depends how many advantages and how many disadvantages are there. It does not have to be equally split. That is kiddish. That is childish. That doesn't work like this in real world, right? So the mix doesn't matter. It all depends on the availability of information. If there are 8 points, you can write 7 positives and 1 negative, depending on the information availability. That's acceptable. Or 6 pros and 2 cons, or the vice versa, 2 pros and 6 cons. It all depends on the exhibit, right? So it doesn't have to be equally balanced. So please remove this misconception. Venetia, same thing. Please do not get confused. You will just follow the exhibits. Okay, right. Now, there is one small complication here. Sometimes the examiner says critically evaluate. Critically evaluate. So what is the meaning of the word critical or criticize? What does criticize means? Criticize means being negative, trying to find out faults, issues, right? So when the question says critically evaluate, then obviously we need to focus more on the negative points. Majority of the points should be negative. Only 1 or very few points should be positive. Majority point should be negative, and when you follow the exhibit, it will also be in the same flow. Okay. Any questions on evaluation skills? Just remember, pros and cons They do not have to be in equal quantity depending on the information available. And if it says critically evaluate, then I will focus more on negative points. Now, there is one more interesting thing that when we will read the requirements, the examiner also gives you some extra guidance. I will show you when we will open the paper after the break. Those extra guidance will also help you, focus on what needs to be done. So overall, I feel that professional skills is easy if you know what to do. So we are down with one, we are done evaluation skill. Analysis skills simply means identify the reasons or the root causes. It's actually the most simple. You just have to identify the reasons or the root cause. If something is going wrong, in the company, what is the reason? Why that thing is going wrong? There must be some underlying reason, right? So when we identify those root causes or reasons, that's analysis. For example, why students fail SBL? We just spoke about this 20 minutes back, right? I gave you 8 reasons why students fail SBL. That's analysis. Analysis means that when you investigate, when you go into detail, when you investigate why the fuck this is happening, the why, that's analysis. Let's take a real case example. Okay, there is one company, their sales revenue is continuously falling. Okay, there is this company, no Nayar. There's this company whose sales revenue is continuously falling for last 3 years. What do you think can be the possible reasons of revenue falling? Please type. I'm just reading your comments. Recession, competition, poor economy, demand is reduced, there's substitute in the market, discounts, I don't understand that, outdated product, recession, employee turnover, okay, maybe bad quality, government policies, lack of sales. Fuck, man. What do you mean lack of sales? This is why exactly what I'm asking. Why the sales are falling? Give me the underlying reason. Customer shifting, substitutes, change in customer taste, change in external environment, demand, trends are changing, obsolescence, poor marketing, excellent. Bad customer support or poor customer service, yes. Tough market, absolutely correct, all of you. This is analysis. What you just did was analysis skills, that you investigate and find out the reasons for the fucking problem. Okay, one more exercise. In another company, suddenly the staff turnover has doubled. In one company, the staff turnover has doubled. Can you please analyze the reasons for me? Staff turnover, less salary, poor working conditions, poor training, lack of bonuses, poor wages, low morale, very good. Salaries not being paid, low motivation, working conditions, no promotion, poor employee management, bad working environment, and just quickly going through change in culture, poor leadership, no growth, apps, job security, okay, bad culture, absolutely, poor reward system, stressful environment. All right, so that's analysis. That when we identify the underlying reasons or root cause, that's analysis. Any questions on analysis skills? Is this clear? So we've done evaluation skill, pros and cons, analysis skills when we are supposed to investigate the underlying reasons or root causes for a problem. The third one is communication skill. Excuse me, please. The third one is communication skill. Again, this one is actually very simple. You need to use the right format. So whatever format is required, you present a professional format. If it's a report, make a proper report. If it's a slide, make a proper slide. If it's an email, make a proper email. So whatever formats we did few minutes back, you have to properly apply them. So automatically you will get communication skills. So the format is a very important component of communication skill. Keep in mind your role. You have to keep in mind your role. So there are two possible situations here. Either you are an employee of the company, like you are the finance manager. If you are the finance manager of the company, that means you are an employee. That means you are an insider. Then your tone will be like us, we, right? And sometimes you might be an external consultant. So in that case, you are an outsider. In that case, you will not say us or we. You will say you, right? So you have to keep your role in mind. You have to keep the addressee in mind, whom you are writing to, your tone, you know, your all those things. But it's generally like not complicated. It's pretty simple. Just focus on the format and focus on the role, whether you are internal or you are external, so that your drafting will be according to your role. Okay. Any questions on communication skills? All right. The fourth one is commercial acumen. So actually this one is simple, but a lot of students, they struggle to understand it. Let me try my best to explain it in a very simple manner. Commercial acumen means your business sense, your commercial sense. Okay, commercial acumen means your business knowledge, your business understanding of the business. So I have a question. Do you think a good CFO should just know the finance department, or he should be able to understand the entire business? What do you think? A good CFO should just be restricted to finance, or is it expected that he understands the business? Absolutely yes. Both, yeah, exactly. Finance is understood, right? But it's also important that a good CFO or a good finance manager needs to understand the basic of the entire business and functions, not just finance, but other functions as well. Right. Why? Why you think a CFO or a finance manager need to understand the business? Any reason? Very good, Barku. He should think about all points, think about risk, legal, decision making. Yeah. Okay. Have you guys studied budgets? Have you guys have studied budgets in any of your subjects before? Do you know what a master budget is? So a budget starts from sales budget, right? F5, okay. A budget always starts from revenue, and then we calculate the cost of sales, then and it goes down, right? How do you budget sales? We look at the volumes, we look at the estimated selling price, right? So if I am the CFO and I am preparing the budget, I will be talking to the sales director and the marketing director to make the sales budget, right? Because sales is the responsibility of sales director. So I will be talking to the sales director or the marketing director when we are preparing the revenue or the sales budget. So don't you think I should be able to understand their language as a CFO? Absolutely, right? If I don't have business acumen, if I don't have basic business knowledge, how the hell will I understand what they are saying? When they talk about customers and competitors and market share and having a promo or a scheme, I should be able to understand that. That is why it's absolutely important that a CFO should have business sense. If I'm talking to the HR, if I'm working on the staff budget, what will be the staff budget? Increments, new hiring, recruitments, I should be able to understand the HR manager, what he or she is saying. So now you understand commercial acumen or basic business sense is very, very important for any finance person, because at the end of the day, everything ends up in finance. If it's revenue, it ends up in finance. If it is cost of sales, it ends up in finance. Everything ends up in finance and goes into the P&L or the balance sheet, right? So it's very important that you guys should have knowledge of commercial acumen. Now, coming back, what do we do in the exam to score marks on this? Do you remember I asked you that the company revenue is falling? And I asked you the reasons, and most of you gave fabulous answers like competition, outdated product, economy, external factors, bad customer service, right? That's commercial acumen. Khalas, that's it. Nothing more. Do you remember I asked you that the staff turnover has doubled? What's the reason? And most of you gave correct answers. Low pay scales, low motivation, low training, bad culture. That's commercial acumen. You guys were not talking like an accountant. You guys were talking business sense. So you see, nothing extra needs to be done to demonstrate commercial acumen, and you don't even know. You gave all the answers. That's called commercial acumen. The only thing is you didn't knew about it. So how do we score commercial acumen? We can use words like customers, competitions, market share, strengths, weakness, opportunities, threat, risks, technology, e-marketing, human resources, strategic planning, goals. These are all very business oriented buzzwords. So if you stick with these words in your answer, the examiner will know that you know the basics of the business. You just need to demonstrate basic understanding of the business, customers, competitions, HR, IT, risks. strengths, weakness, strategies. These are all commercial acumen. Okay. So you don't talk like an accountant. You don't talk like an accountant. You talk like a mature business person. That's commercial acumen. Any questions on commercial acumen? Good. The last skill is skepticism skill. In my view, this is the most difficult. So we talked about 4 skills: analysis skills, evaluation skills, very simple, pros and cons. Then we talked about analysis skills, very simple, investigate the underlying reasons or root cause of any problem. The third one we spoke was communication skill, very simple, just focus on the format and your role, whether you are internal or external. The fourth one was commercial acumen, where you just talk about general business matters or issues like customers, suppliers, and all these things. Very simple. But skepticism skill, in my view, is not difficult, but we need to focus a little bit more on this as compared to the others. So what is the meaning of the word skepticism? Do you know skepticism means what in plain English? Skepticism means investigating mind, questioning mind, probing mind, being alert, questioning attitude. Yes. So I'm a CFO for last 12 years. I have a big team of people working under me. Obviously, they are doing the work and I review their work. Okay, they are doing the actual work. They are preparing the documents or reports for me, and I'm reviewing their work. Shall I accept their work blindly, or should I review it carefully and ask them some questions? What do you think? Should I believe them blindly? I mean, they can make errors, right? Or they might have missed something. So it is my job not to trust anyone blindly. I should have a questioning mind, an investigative or a probing mind. So when I see a report, I look at things. Wherever I have doubts, I ask questions so that I know that, there is no mistake. The guy has done the work properly. So skepticism means that you ask questions, you challenge, you disagree. These are skepticism, right? So from an exam point of view, when the question says demonstrate skepticism skill, try to ask a couple of questions. Put a question mark somewhere in your drafting. Or use the word, I disagree, or doesn't seem correct. Some negative comment or a challenging comment or a question should be there in your draft. As long as you ask a question or you challenge something or you disagree with something, you will score skepticism skill. It is easy to understand, but under exam pressure, you will forget to ask questions. You might forget to draft in a negative tone, right? So that is where I feel that, you must remember that when there's a skepticism skill, try to ask a question or disagree or challenge something. You can be negative, but not in a bad sense. You cannot be bad-mannered, but you can be respectfully negative or disagree. Clear? Any questions? Okay, so we are done with all the formats. We are done with all the professional skills. The next big thing which is pending is exam techniques, which I think I will cover tomorrow, which is day number 2, because today there's a lot of things we have covered. So tomorrow, with a fresh mind, we will talk about exam techniques. Okay, extremely important. So please make sure you join tomorrow on time. Okay. There are technical articles. Again, I will cover this tomorrow. Right. So let's take a 15-minute break. And after the break, I will be inviting Mr. Rahul Bikram. And Rahul is basically the global prize winner for SBL in the previous attempt. And he scored 92 marks. All right. So I have requested him to share his approach and his experience, how the fuck he managed to score 92. Even I think if I give SBL paper, I'm pretty sure I will not be able to score 92. So he's a good looking dude, huh? Good for the girls. Very nice. So let's have a 20-minute break. Okay, it is 8:20 here. Where do I write the break? 20-minute break. 8:20 to 8:40 p.m. Paki time. Okay. So I will see you right after the break. We will start discussion with this guy. So please don't miss it. I will see you sharp in 20 minutes. Bye. Hi guys, are you there? Can I start? Excellent, excellent. Right, so as discussed before the break, we have with us Rahul Bikram, who is the SBL Global Prize winner for March attempt, and he scored amazingly 92 marks. And let me see if he's around, and I will take him live so that we can learn from his approach and experience. Give me a second. Hi, Rahul.
Hi there. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you. Guys, are you able to see Rahul, and are you able to hear him? Please type. Excellent, excellent. All right, so we have got with us Rahul. And as I mentioned, he's the global prize winner for SBL in the previous attempt. He scored unbelievingly high marks, 92 marks out of 100. So Rahul, a big congratulations to you. It is not a small achievement.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So Rahul, let me ask you some basic questions. Rahul, are you a working person or a full-time student?
So I am working full-time, and it does make it challenging to focus on studies and work, but I have managed to find a balance to do it.
All right. So what is your nature of work?
So I am working in the finance department in an FMCG company. So I am a finance systems and process analyst. So I work in the finance department and I look at our internal processes and I try to improve them using digitization and automation.
Wow, interesting. Was this your first attempt to SBL?
Yes, it was my first attempt.
Excellent. And did you just give SBL or did you give some other paper along with SBL in March?
This was the only exam I took in March.
Okay, so you just gave one paper in March, SBL.
Yes.
Right. So can you share with us your study approach, especially in the last month, like 1 month before the exam? What was your study approach? How much theoretical, how much practice? Just, what was your strategy for preparing for the exam?
So in terms of preparation, it's important. I thought that it was important to do all of the content first, and then I can start practicing as soon as possible. So in the last month of the exam, I wanted to already be done with all of the content. So I have 1 month just for preparing for the exam. Then in terms of time, I think it was very important to be consistent, especially when you're working full time. You have to try and put in at least 2 or 3 hours every day on the weekdays. And then on weekends, you have to put in a few more hours. And it's quite important to build a discipline to be able to do that.
I see. So you were spending at least 2 to 3 hours every day on weekdays and on weekends, like close to 5 to 6 hours.
Yes, correct.
And how much focus were you doing on theoretical side versus practice side? Were you practicing more or were you just going through the chapters more?
So I spent a lot more time on practice, especially with SBL. I think for most of the ACCA exams, SBL is the most practical exam. It's not very technical compared to other exams like tax. So I wanted to do all of the content, and I did that in about 20 or 30% of my total study time. And from then, I spent a majority of my time on practicing questions, because then I
I
could
see.
actually apply what I had learned in the questions.
Very interesting. As you said that SBL is more of a practical exam rather than a technical exam. So you used to
Yes,
spend 70, 80% of the time in practicing.
yes. I know a lot of students might think if you cover the whole syllabus, then you're ready to pass the exam. But especially with SBL, that's not the case, because you haven't applied your knowledge yet.
I
And you need a
completely
question for
agree.
that.
I completely agree because SBL is not like any other ACCA paper. So
Yes,
it's a practical exam. So you should spend like 70% on practicing. I mean, you should spend more time in practice rather than more time in content or syllabus. And that's what you did, right?
yes. But it's important not to neglect the content as well. You do need
Oh,
to have full
absolutely.
understanding. And you need to get
Absolutely.
that understanding as soon as you can, so you have time to practice.
Absolutely. So when you said practice, you were doing practice how? Like on the CBE platform or Microsoft Word, or what do you mean by how were you doing your practice?
So I found it easier to actually use to download papers on PDF and then practice them on my own word processor on Excel. But I did use the CBE platform a lot, especially towards approaching the exam time.
Yeah, so I'm
And
more focused on the last few weeks because we are just 4 weeks away from the exam.
yes, so
So
what I found is that SBL, it's a 4 hour exam. And if you have to sit down and do 4 hours of work, it's a lot of energy, especially when you come home from work. You can't sit and do a 4 hour exam. So what I did is I said maybe for 2 days, I'll break down one exam. So I'll do half of the question on one day and half on the next day. So because I could break down my time in chunks, it allowed me to actually do the work. Because if I said, let me try and do 4 hours, I'm just going to put it off and possibly not do anything.
so good strategy. So you used to break down the case study between 2 days. So you spend like 2-3 hours on the first day and then 2-3 hours on the next day to finish the entire
Yes,
scenario, right?
yes, correct.
Hmm. So guys, did you understand his study approach that, he first understood the content and then he spent more time on practice, and he used to give at least 2-3 hours each day and more hours on the weekend. And he used to break the scenario between 2 days because for him, it was not possible to sit straight 4 hours after office. Did I summarize correctly for you, Rahul?
Yes, that's correct. And on weekends, it would be possible to sit for that 4 hours because you would
Right,
have more energy during the
correct.
weekend.
All right. So now so how many scenarios you practiced? How many past papers? Did you do all of them or just very few of them?
I did do a couple of them, maybe about 10 or so, but there's a lot on the practice platform that I didn't do. So there are definitely enough resources available for us to do and practice as much as we can. I'd say minimum 5 we need to do, but try and do as much as you can.
Yeah. So you did at least 5-7 case scenarios in your
Yes.
practice? Okay.
And
So,
with some of them, when I found that I was just a bit too tired to actually do the question properly, what I did is I at least sat and tried to write down my answer plan that I would answer, at least in bullet points. And from there, I could look at the answer and read the examiner report. So at least I could do something rather than putting off the entire exam preparation.
got it. Did you use any book like BPP or Kaplan, or you just watched the webinars and the internet resources?
So I didn't use any books, and especially
What?
at
Can you
this
repeat
level,
that?
I didn't use any books.
You didn't use any books? Oh my God. A lot of
So
students might faint when they listen to you.
especially at this level, the exam kits are basically past exam questions. So that's already available on the practice platform. There's a lot of resources that are available. And on YouTube, like your webinars are quite useful as we watch you going through answers. And your grand revision with the top 25 topics, it covers a whole lot of content. That's
Oh, you
also
use
useful.
you use my grand revision top 25 topics video?
Yes, so I actually did that at the very start of my study. So the first thing I did is I watched your orientation video, and the next thing I jumped straight into that top 25, even though I had no idea what the content was about. But that 5 hours gave me a good understanding of what SBL is about and where I should be focusing as I am studying through the content.
Excellent. So you did not use books, you used the resources available online. You looked at the webinars, you looked at my top 25 grand revision video, some other sources, and then you spent most of the time practicing. Right. So I'm
Yes.
very clear now on your preparation stage. So let's now move towards your actual exam. So during that 4 hours, how did you manage your time?
So I think I was able to manage my time very well. And it's also a discipline that was a big part of my preparation. I set a specific time for each question and I made sure that I moved on when that time was up. So in terms of planning for time, I said the exam is 240 minutes. So I spent the first 40 minutes planning and reading as much as I can. So it gives me an even 200 minutes left. That's 2 minutes per mark. And I use my spreadsheet and said task 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I'm starting my exam at 9 a.m., at 9:40, I'm starting question 1. Then if question 1 is 20 minutes, then, sorry, if it's 20 marks, that's 40 minutes for me. So at 10:10, I'm moving on. Sorry, at 10:20, I'm moving on to question 2. So I have my end time planned. So I just write as much as I can, as many points within my allocated time, and then I move on to the next question. And I found that to
Oh,
be quite useful.
very, very interesting. So you allocated time for each question. So what happens when you overrun the time and your answer was not complete? Because most of the students, they face this problem that, their allocated time is over, but yet their answer is just 80%, 20% is remaining. Did you face this problem in any of the questions where you were not able to complete, but the time was up?
Yes, there was a specific question for identifying weaknesses and recommendations. And once I saw the question, I just started going through the scenario and answering. And when my time was close to up, I went back to the question and I saw that they wanted weaknesses and recommendations for two specific areas. And that's when I thought I'm in trouble because I spent most of my answer on the first part and I didn't have much on the second part. So time was up for that question and I had to move on because I know I scored some marks. As long as I scored something, that's enough. then I can go on to the next question, get as much there. And if I have at least 5 minutes towards the end of the exam, I can come back and write something in.
So you actually left that question incomplete and moved on to the next question when the allowed time was up?
Yes, so I finished the point I was writing, and then I felt that I had to move on.
Yeah, agreed. Good strategy. And how did you link your answers with the scenario when you were reading the exhibits? You know, you have to draft our answers in according to the exhibits and the scenario. So what was your technique for linking with the scenario?
Okay, so at the start of the exam, in my 40 minutes of planning, I used a spreadsheet to say task 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that, I said how much time I should be spending on that question. But I also tried to link each one to an exhibit on my spreadsheet as a planner. So in my 40 minutes, I skimmed through all exhibits. I looked at the headings and saw what information it had. I read the task, and from there, I could see what was relevant. And I wrote that down next to the question. So once I got to the question, I knew I need to look at all of these exhibits, and that will give me enough information for a complete answer.
Excellent, excellent. How is your reading speed? Is it slow or average or good?
My typing speed.
No, reading.
Reading. So I do read a lot, so I think it's a bit above average. And if you are reading books all of the time, then that is natural.
Okay, and what about your typing speed?
So typing speed, I actually spent time learning how to type faster. So once you got to the strategic level exams, you spend almost all of your time typing. And I felt that you really need to be able to type fast to maximize your chance of getting as much marks as you can and to write enough to finish the exam. So my typing speed was about 40 words per minute, but then I used this resource called typing.com. It's a free learning platform on the internet that you can just go in, and they teach you how to type. They teach you which finger should hit each key, where to place your fingers on the keyboard. And in about 3 months, after spending 10 minutes a day, I went from 40 words per minute to about 60 words per minute. That's like a 50% increase. And I think that was quite crucial because it helped me write enough relevant points for all of my questions. And I could even write 1 or 2 extra points.
Right. So basically, you know, you have a good reading speed and you have also a good typing speed, which you acquired through practicing on typing.com.
Yes.
So you think that's very important for SBL so that you're able to squeeze in a couple of extra points if you can read fast and type fast?
Yes, for the strategic level exams, it is very important. If you can write 1 or 2 extra points for each question, if one of the first points you wrote was not relevant, then it gives you that buffer that you wrote an extra point that might give you the mark.
Correct. So how many points you used to write for one question? How do you allocate the marks or decide the number of points for each question?
Okay, so I found that it's generally about 2 marks per valid point. And what I did is I wrote out my subheadings after looking at the question, and I said, if this part of the question has 10 marks, that's 5 points. So I split those 5 points into 5 mini paragraphs in that subheading. And each mini paragraph, I'm trying to tell the examiner, this is a point for me, give me the mark. So I wrote about an average 3 sentences for each point.
So very interesting. So you basically followed 2 marks per point. So if it's a 10 marks question, you wrote 5 points, and 5 points means 5 mini paragraphs, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned that your paragraph or point was approximately 3 lines.
It was about 3 sentences, yes.
Three sentences.
Yes.
Interesting, very interesting. And were you able to give one extra point in some few of the questions?
Yes, it depends if I had enough information that I had to talk about. So if I did, I wrote down the 1 or 2 extra points. And that helped give me a buffer.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Right. So what was the biggest challenge you faced during the paper, if any?
So I actually prepared quite well for this exam. I think I had the correct technique. While I was preparing for the exam, I I set out exactly what steps I should do throughout the exam in those 4 hours. So step one would be read the overview, read task one, then to go on Excel and write down each task and allocate time to all of those steps. And because I did all of that, it felt quite easy to just go through the exam. I didn't really have any real challenges except for the one part where I didn't finish one specific question and I had to move on. But I think that was again down to me not reading the entire question fully and understanding it.
So was there any question which was a bouncer question which you did not understand, and then you decided to skip it or handle it? How did you manage a question which was maybe there was limited information in the exhibit? So how did you handle those type of questions where you struggled to find out information from the exhibit, or it was a tricky question? How do you handle those type of questions?
So, if I recall, the last question was on responsible leadership, and that was a technical article. When I was going through my studying, learning all of those technical articles, that article actually came out in an exam last year. So I only went through it once and not again. I said there's a very low chance of it appearing again. I'll focus on the newer technical articles.
Correct.
But that's a dangerous thing to do because it did come out again. And I had limited knowledge of what I could write. And the exhibits also didn't have much information. You had to come up with information on your own. So what I did is the question was advising the CEO of how they and it was doing a slide for the CEO to present to their company leaders of how to be responsible leaders. So I tried to apply it to real life and to my own company. So I thought of a responsible leader and see what do they actually do. And I found that to be very useful, especially with the entire scenario. So that scenario was about a bookshop. And I thought of a bookshop in my country. I thought about the layout of the bookshop, how they go about doing things. And if you can apply things to real life, I felt that it makes things a lot easier for you to grasp and really understand.
Very interesting point. So you basically link that to a real life example. So you said that the scenario was of a bookshop or something. And when you got stuck, you then imagined a real life example in your life and you tried to imagine that. And then based on that, you drafted your answer.
Yes, so I didn't mention any models at all in the exam. I didn't
Ah,
mention photo or anything. It was
can you
all
repeat that? Can you
application.
repeat that bit on the models?
Yes, I didn't mention a single model in the exam.
Wow, you didn't mention a single model in the exam, and yet you scored 92.
Yes, it's all about the application of it. So the way I was thinking about it, I put myself in the shoes of 3 people. First, I read the question to
Put,
try to
sorry, put,
understand
put myself in whose shoes?
in the shoes of 3 people.
Of who?
So the first, did you get that?
No.
So I placed myself in the shoes of 3 people.
Three
So the
people,
first,
okay.
yes, when I was answering a question. So the first person is the examiner. So I read the question, tried to think about what does the examiner want? What subheading do they want? How many points? Once I understood the structure of the answer, I put myself in the shoes of who I am advising. If I am advising the CEO, I'd ask myself, what does the CEO actually want to know? What would give the CEO value? Because if I'm writing something and it's not going to help the CEO make a better decision, it's pointless and you might not get a mark. If I mention Porter's model to the CEO, he doesn't really care what the model is called. He wants to know, how do I apply it to my company?
Very good
So
point.
once I place myself in those two roles, then you place yourself into the role you are given. So you combine your information from what the examiner wants, what the CEO wants, and from that you come up with your answer. And that's the strategy I applied.
Very interesting. So you put yourself in three people's shoes, the examiner, the CEO, and actually your own role in the paper.
Yes.
But you know, this is too much things to do, right? So you are practicing all this throughout. That is why you were able to do it in the exam. It cannot be done overnight, right?
Yes. If you spend the month before the exam practicing questions, then it becomes second nature to you. You'd be able to do it very quickly. And it does happen with practice.
Right. So that is why you know, spend like 70-80% of the time practice so that you can, you know, sharpen your skills and your exam techniques and approach.
Yes, and it was also
Okay.
important to mark yourself in each mock attempt and read the examiner reports, and also to
Okay.
note down your mistakes. Because in my
Okay.
first exam, I attempted, not my exam, one of the practice questions, I forgot to sign off to say, best regards, senior consultant. So I wrote that down in my notes, and because I practiced it and I know I made that mistake, you're never going to make it again. But if you don't practice, then you'll make the mistake in the exam, and that's how you lose marks.
Excellent. So my last question, were you expecting 92 when you stepped out of the exam?
No, not at all. I I just tried to write as much relevant points as possible and see how I could do.
Excellent, excellent. I am so proud and honored that you gave a few minutes to us tonight. And I'm sure all, you know, there are like 264 students out there right now listening to you. I'm sure they are all very thankful to you, and I just hope and pray that they utilize your experience and the thoughts you shared, and they also pass with flying colors. So a big thank you to you, and a bigger congratulations to you for scoring 92 in a very difficult attempt.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to be able to share my experiences with my fellow students. And I hope that everyone is successful in their exams. I know it's very
Okay.
tough, but with discipline, we can definitely do it.
Right, right. Rahul, thank you so much. And we will stay in touch offline.
Yes, yes, we
All
can.
right, man. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Right, guys. That was Rahul, and I hope that you were able to kind of understand his thoughts and his experience. And most of them makes a lot of sense. And when we will go through the exam techniques tomorrow, we will be touching upon all these things in a more structured way. The most important thing, or the most important takeaway in my view, is that he focused 70 to 80% on the practice and less on the content. He was already prepared with the content, but in the last 1 month, 80%. Who's this? Please, guys, can you mute? In the last 1 month, like 80% of the time he was practicing. All right. The second important thing was time management, that he managed his time very properly. If he was not able to complete the answer within the allowed time, He just moved on to the next question. The third thing was linking with the scenario. So he jotted down all the important points from the exhibit, and based on that, he drafted his answers. And yes, he did not use any models. Right. Articles I will cover tomorrow, so don't worry. All right. So can we now, I would now resume. Sarah, you are causing disturbance. Please make sure you are muted. Let me move back to my webinar, share my screen here and here. All right, so that was Rahul Bikram. So now we will start our practice question for tonight, because we are now familiar with the format, with the professional skills. But before that, I just have a very small announcement, because we might not get time in the end. So my revision and practice classes will be starting from 9th May. It is a paid session. If you are interested, you can enroll it. What it includes is basically we will solve 5 SBL case studies in live classes. We will do 3 mock exams. I will be checking 1 mock script, okay, and all classes will be recorded, and there will be a grand revision 3 days before the exam, and that is the investment. If you are interested in joining the revision classes, the drafting classes, that's my number. So those of you who are already enrolled in my regular batch for June or the reset batch, you don't have to enroll again, because that's already included in your package. But those of you who are not enrolled and want to join are most welcome. Okay. So yes, all the lectures will be recorded, and so people who are facing time zone differences can watch it the next day. This is basically the schedule of the revision classes. You can see it's a very tight schedule. So 6th and 7th May, we have the webinar. From 9th May, the revision classes will start. So we will be splitting 1 case study in 2 days. So this is COFOL day 1, day 2. After that, we will do Yex Marine day 1, day 2. Then we will do Optima case study day 1, day 2. After these 3 case studies, we will do our first mock. Then we will do our second mock. This second mock will be marked by me. Again, we will do 1 more case study, then another case study, and then we will do a third mock. And just before the exam on 3rd June, we will do a grand revision. That's the schedule for my revision classes. It will be 7 p.m. Pakistan time to 10:30 p.m. and all classes will be recorded for later viewing. All right. Okay, so today's practice, let's now do today's question. So today I have selected a topic called risk and recommendation. And why did I select this topic? Because a lot of students, they struggle in the risk management syllabus area. Okay. So I just selected this question so that you can get a good idea how to handle a risk management question. And also, basically, usually risk and recommendation question is a common sense question. So, so today I will show you what I mean by common sense question, how we can approach this. All right. So do you remember the format I had mentioned before, like before the break, that Ideally, I would want you to use a tabular format. One side will be risk, one side will be recommendation. Okay, so which question are we doing? So I have selected a question from your latest available paper, which is September-December 2022. It is called QH, or it was like Qualita Homes. All right. And we will be doing question number 4B right now. So please, can you open up your CBE platform and open up September-December 2022. It is basically on your CBE platform. It is appearing under past exam library, September-December 2022. So I'll just open up my CBE platform. Those of you who don't know how to open it, just go to your My ACCA portal, and then from there, you can go to resources, and then you can log into the practice platform. And then from there, so let me just open up my here. Right, so that is my CBE platform. I will scroll down to Strategic Business Leader. I will click on ACCA Official Resources. I will click on Past Exam Library, and I will basically look for September-December 2022. This paper I will assign. And then I will scroll down on the left side. It should be here. Here, I will resume. All right, so my paper is open. On the left side, you can see the paper date, September-December 2022. So please open up this paper on your CBE platform. You have 20 more seconds. Once you are ready, please type done. When you are ready with this paper, please type done. All right, so let's go to task number 4. Now, I will tell you something very interesting. Normally, every question has 3 components. I repeat, every question has 3 components. For example, when you look at 4B, there are 3 components. The first component is the background. The second component is the technical requirement, which in this case is 12 marks. And the third component is professional skills, which is worth 3 marks in this case. Do you understand? Every question will have 3 components: the background, the technical requirement, and the professional skills. It's very important to read the background properly, then the technical requirement, then the professional. So let's read the background. Due to increasing focus on environmental and sustainability issues, the Chief Finance Officer has suggested including additional risks in the QH Principal Risk Register. The chair of the current Audit and Risk Committee has asked for your help. Okay. Technical requirement: write a briefing note to the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, which explains how the proposed additional principal risks could impact on the achievement of QH strategic objectives, and recommend how these risks could be mitigated. 12 marks, and professional skills marks are available for demonstrating evaluation skills in using professional judgment to clearly assess the impact of the additional risks and the required mitigation actions. Let's go one by one. So you see the background says, due to the increasing focus on environmental and sustainability issues, the CFO has suggested including additional risk in the risk register. Okay, so the CFO wants to include some additional risks in the risk register, mainly relating to environmental and sustainability issues. Okay. When you look at the technical requirement, what is the format required? What is the format required? It's a briefing note. Whom should be addressed to? Who wants this briefing note? The chair of the current audit and risk committee wants this from you. And what does he expect in this briefing note? He wants you to explain how the proposed additional risk could impact on our objectives. And you see, there are two portions. And he also wants you to recommend how these risks could be mitigated. So two things he wants. He wants you to talk about the impact of those risks and how this company can mitigate those risks. Do you understand the requirement? So it's a briefing note addressed to the chairman of current audit and risk committee, and he wants you to explain the impact of those risks on our business and our objectives, and further to give recommendations on how we can mitigate those risks. Now, regarding professional skills, what is the skills? Evaluation skills, which means pros and cons. But I had mentioned earlier that the examiner also provides additional guidance. So if you read further, there's some additional guidance here. How in using professional judgment to clearly assess the impact. He wants you to clearly assess the impact and the required mitigation actions. So where are the pros and cons? So when you talk about the impact, that's negative, right? So if a risk happens, it will cause damage to us. So the impact of any risk is bad. So that's negative. And when you will give recommendations, that's the pros, that's the positive, that how we can fix it. So as long as you explain the impact nicely, and then you can suggest a logical recommendation, automatically you will get evaluation skills marks. Is that clear? So I believe nothing extra needs to be done for professional skills. Just explain the impact properly, that's the negative side or the cons, and just explain the recommendations properly, that's the positive side or the pros. Now what? So now, before we start, these are the list of exhibits, right? But before we go into the relevant exhibit, I want you to read the first exhibit, which is basically the overview of the company, so that we know what this company is about, so that when we read the relevant exhibits, we know the background, we know the scenario. Can you please read this exhibit? I give you 5 minutes. Okay, guys, once you are done, please type done. I'm done with the overview. Once you are done, please type done. Okay, very good. 30 more seconds. All right. So can anybody tell me what is our role? Let's see your memory. What is our role? Senior Finance Manager. Please, can you imagine yourself as Senior Finance Manager? As Rahul mentioned, put yourself in three people's shoes, right? So please, can you put yourself in the shoes of Senior Finance Manager? So you are a senior person. Your salary is $10,000 per month. So your thoughts, your points should add value to the company, right? Okay. So what is the company about? So whom do we work for? Whom do we work for? So we work for a company called QH. What do? We build houses in the country of Morlia. How old we are? We are 50 years old. We are the largest house building company. We are the market leader. We have 4,000 staff, 1,000 suppliers. We build houses on huge, large areas, development lands throughout the country. And we have two broad products, premium houses and executive houses. The executive one is expensive and bigger. And we have built, sold the highest number of houses. So yes, we are the market leader, but then there is something negative. You see, I shaded in another color. What is the negative thing? Increasing level of negative publicity and customer complaints have resulted in declining financial performance over the last 2 fucking years. Shit, man. So even though we are the largest, but because of some negative publicity, I don't know what negative publicity, and because of customer complaints, which means that there are issues with the quality and the customers are complaining, that has resulted in declining financial performance. Big issue. So the board now wants to focus on improving the performance and improving stakeholders' confidence in the brand. So obviously we are losing customers because of the negative publicity and complaints. We have to restore our reputation and confidence of the stakeholders while improving our financial performance. And it is mentioned that it is currently September X2. Do you have any questions on the overview? I think it was pretty straightforward. I understood everything. We have the background, we know the role, we know what we do, what are the challenges we are facing. Easy, right? All right. Now I want to see what are those additional risks which the CFO has pointed out. Remember the requirement that, the CFO has pointed out 3 additional risks, and now we are supposed to talk about its impact and we have to recommend, right? So what are those 3 risks? So can you open up Exhibit 7? It says risk management proposal. These are the current principal risks. Okay, so just leave all this. It's not valid or relevant to this question, but it says what are the current risks. These are the current risks which they are focusing on, and what are the proposed additional risks which the CFO has mentioned. Skilled workforce, land availability, and climate change. As per the CFO, these are the 3 additional risks which he wants to be included in the risk register. What are the 3 risks? Skilled workforce, land availability, and climate change. Clear? These are the 3 risks we need to talk about. We need to understand what these risks means. We need to talk about its impact and then what we can do to mitigate those risks. Correct? Now, always remember, before you start drafting, you have to make the skeleton of the answer. Can we make the skeleton of the answer? Because when we start reading, we can easily copy paste information from the exhibit if the skeleton is ready. So can we make the template of our answer? Please open up the word processor. Write the name of the question, task 4B. Okay. What is the format required? Briefing note. So I will write the heading. Then what do you remember the briefing note format? To, from, subject, date, introduction, best regards, and our role. Do you remember this? To, from, subject, date, introduction, and closure. Please do this. Please open up your Word tool and can you do this? You have 30 seconds. Okay, let's start filling this. To whom should the briefing note be addressed to? I think it was Chair of Audit and Risk Committee. From Senior Finance Manager. Subject, I will just pick up proposed additional principal risks. Plain and simple. Subject is proposed additional principal risks. I just picked up from the requirement. Date, usually we will write today. So here you can either write today or you can write the date mentioned in the first overview. Up to you. It's not a big deal. You can either write today or the month mentioned in the exhibit. All right. September 20x2. Introduction, please watch carefully. I would say this briefing note, and then I will just copy paste the requirement. Explains on words. I'll just copy this. Explains how the proposed additional principal risk could impact on the achievement of QH objectives and recommend how these could be mitigated. Perfect. What is our role here? I will just quickly bold this so that, you know, this looks more professional. The main headings, I will just bold them. Done? Are you guys done? Are you with me with this template? Task 4B, briefing note to Chair of Audit and Risk Committee from Senior Finance Manager. Subject is proposed additional principal risk, date, introduction, and then the closure, which is best regards, Senior Finance Manager. Now we are supposed to talk about the three risks and then give recommendation. Can I use a tabular format here? I would like to use a tabular format here because, as I told you in the start, that any questions which requires risk and recommendation, I would prefer a tabular format. So let's insert a table. This is the icon here. I click here, click on table, and I need two columns, one for weakness, risk, and one for recommendation. And let's have few rows. Here I would say risks, and here I would say recommendation. I will just center these two and make them bold. Is your table. I give you 10 more seconds for the table. You see how your answer is now shaping up? Proper format, there's an introduction, there's a proper table. Looks professional, right? It is addressed to the chairman of audit committee and you are a senior finance manager. Right. So what are the three risks? I would just copy the three risks from here. So one is skilled workforce, Control C. The second one is land availability. I will put it on leaving one line. And the third risk is climate change. We will talk about these three risks: skilled workforce, land availability, and climate change. And we will talk about the impact which they may have on our objectives and our business. And here I will give recommendations. Got it? Simple so far? Simple so far? All right. So if you read the requirement, it was mentioned somewhere that we have to explain how the additional risk could impact on the achievement of QH strategic objectives. So do you think we should be aware of our strategic objectives? What do you think? If you need to talk about the impact on our objectives, then the first step would be what is our objective? So we should know our objectives, right? No. So if there is a separate exhibit in which our strategic objectives are clearly mentioned, I think it is annual report. I'm not sure. Let me see annual report. Ah, yes. So can you open up exhibit 3, which is the annual report, and it clearly says strategic objectives. So obviously the annual report of an organization will talk about the overall strategies and objectives of the company, right? So our business is focused on the achievement of 4 strategic objectives. So the company has set out 4 strategic objectives. What is the first objective? Maintaining financial strength. Makes sense. What is the second objective? Providing quality houses and customer service. So providing quality houses and customer service. Third objective, strategic objective, is maintaining and building a diverse and talented workforce. And the fourth objective is supporting sustainable communities. What is the meaning of sustainable communities? It is to do with environment, climate, all those things. Huh? So we know that now, at a company level, we have four main objectives. One is financial strength, which is deteriorating since last 2 years. One is quality and customer service, quality of houses and customer service. Third one is staffing, that we have to maintain talented workforce. And the fourth one is we want to support sustainable or environmental friendly communities or housing. Any questions so far? Okay. I might forget it. So can I copy this somewhere on my Word tool, because I might just mention these because I'm bad with memory. So I'll just copy the four strategic objectives and paste it here. Later on, if I want, I can delete it. Because the question is asking us how it will achieve or impact our strategic objectives. So, we should know our objectives so that we can refer to them while talking about the impact. So I just mentioned the four strategic objectives here, and I will try to use it in my answer. All right. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Easy? Okay, now let's talk about the first risk. The first risk is skilled workforce. Can anybody tell me what is our nature of business? What do we do? What is the nature of business? What do? We construct, we build houses, right? Very good. We construct and build houses. Not design houses, my boy. We construct, build houses. Construction, yeah. We are a construction company. We build houses. Now, can anybody tell me how many employees we have? Very good, Akshi. I know you are the fastest. 4,000 employees we have. So we construct houses. So probably we might have engineers, we might have supervisors, we might have architects, we might have labor. Got it? 4,000. Now, what is the meaning of skilled workforce as a risk? When we talk about risk, skilled workforce, what is the risks when we talk about skilled workforce risk? Shortage. So a skilled workforce as a risk would mean that we might lose our skilled workforce, skilled people. There might be a shortage, right? What will be, so do you think skilled workforce is important for us? Do you think skilled workforce is important for us, keeping in mind our nature of business and our objectives? We are dependent, we are constructing houses. So skilled workforce like engineers, architects, supervisors, technical, skillful labor are very important. Without them, we will not be able to build houses, right? Yes, who is Marwa is saying that even talented workforce is one of our objectives. Absolutely correct. Because it's so important, it is one of our strategic objectives to make sure that we have a talented workforce, right? No, Hassan, forget about intellectual risk. That's something different. That's about research and innovation, patents. Don't confuse things, huh? Now listen to my question very carefully. What will happen if something goes wrong in our skilled force? What will be the impact on our business? What can go wrong if something goes wrong with our skilled workforce? The quality of the, just think, if we lose our skilled workforce or their skill level is reduced or compromised, what can happen? I'm just reading your comments. The quality will suffer. Absolutely correct. Reputational loss. Absolutely correct. Loss of customers. So yes, so very good. So I can think that if the quality, if the quality of the housing might deteriorate, what will happen if the quality of the houses goes down? What will happen if the quality of the houses deteriorate? We will lose customers, the customer complaints will go up, our revenues, loss of revenues, reputational damage, so many impact. Okay, do you also think health and safety can be an issue here? If our workforce is not skilled enough, then the chances of accidents and injuries will increase. So what will happen if there are more accidents and injuries in our team? What can it lead to? Litigation, penalties, fines, reputational losses. Absolutely correct. Delays in the work. We also need to delay in the project, right? Because if there's a big major accident, then work will stop. Very good. High turnover. Yes. Okay, stop. Stop. I think you guys gave fabulous answers. And all this is commercial acumen. I mean, you guys have commercial acumen because you're able to think through the impact on the business. So don't underestimate yourself, huh? You guys have common sense. And this was a common sense question. As I said in the start, risk management is generally a common sense question because you have to apply your knowledge on the scenario. So in this scenario, what is our nature of business? We construct houses. So if we lose our skilled workforce, the quality of the houses might deteriorate. We will lose customers. We will lose revenue, reputational loss. It may lead to higher accidents and injuries and all this. So which objective will be affected? I think almost these three will be affected, right? That it is one of our objective is to maintain a talented workforce. So if the risk is there, we are moving away from this objective. And because of this, another objective, which is to provide quality houses and customer service, this will not be achieved because of the lack of skilled workforce. And because of this, we will start losing customers and hence our revenues might deteriorate. You see, it affects so many objectives. Interesting. No, Hassan, it doesn't work like that. Zainab, please don't mention stupid models like Tara and Koso. Didn't you hear that global prize winner? He did not use any single model. Why the fuck you want to talk about models here? I'm talking about common sense here. Please get rid of models, okay? Okay. Now, I want to show you something important, or not important, interesting. If I open up the annual report again, there are some key performance indicators. Can you see anything relating to staff training days or relating to staff? Can you see any KPI relating to staff? So, okay, let's start from beginning. There's a revenue, profit. So you can see profit is declining, revenue is stagnant, profit is declining, ROCE is declining, customer satisfaction is declining. Oh my God. Staff training days is declining. So staff training is declining. Is that good or bad? It's bad, right? So we are not investing in staff training. In fact, we are spending less time on staff training. What will happen then? Staff will be untrained. If they are not trained regularly, their skills will not be updated. It will result in bad quality. It will result in accidents. Bad quality will result in customer loss, reputational loss. Excellent. Okay, so now are you ready to draft? So what do we draft? So here we have to talk about the impact. So can I start by the objective here? I would say that one of our strategic objective is to maintain and build a diverse and talented workforce. Okay. Now let's talk about the impact. If we are not able to maintain skilled workforce, it will have what? The quality of the houses will deteriorate, right? This will lead to increase in customer complaints. We might lose customers and hence our revenues. As can be seen, are we losing revenues? No, it's actually stagnant. No, it's actually, yeah, it's falling, right? 3078, 3097, 3009. So as can be seen in our annual report, one of our strategic objective is to maintain and build a diverse and talented workforce. If we are not able to maintain the skilled workforce, talk about the impact. The quality of the houses will deteriorate. This will lead to increase in customer complaints. We might lose customers and hence our revenues. And our revenues will start to decline, as can be seen in our annual report. Okay. Also, I might want to talk about lower training. Also, our staff training days have significantly reduced over the years, which can lead to higher accidents and injuries, as well as quality of the houses might suffer. Enough. So you see, there are two important things I did. I tried to link with the scenario. So I picked the objectives from the scenario. I referred to the financials from the scenario. I referred to the following staff training statistics from the scenario. As a senior finance manager, I'm talking on facts and figures. I'm giving facts about what's happening. Our revenues are falling, our training hours are falling. It will affect our revenues and customers. So one part was to link with the scenario using information from the scenario, and the second portion was to talk about the impact. You remember the professional skill is that we have to explain the impact properly. So do you think we've explained the impact? That the quality of the house will deteriorate, customer complaints will increase, we can lose customers, we can lose revenues, higher accidents and injuries. All these are impact. I think it's a pretty good answer. That's it. So now what do you recommend? How can you make sure that we are able to attract and retain skilled labor? I think we should increase the number of training days. Very good. That's good. That's one option, that we should increase the training days. We can improve their salaries. Yes, yes. Motivation, very yes. Salary, remuneration, motivation, training. Okay, surveys, staff survey. Very interesting. Somebody mentioned we should do staff surveys. Yes, a lot of companies, they carry out staff surveys to find out what are their issues so that they can address it. Proper health and safety facilities, very good. All right, enough. I think you've got it. I just need 2 or 3 points. So first recommendation is very simple. We should increase the training Agreed? Plain and simple. We should increase the training number of days. The second point is about salary, right? So I saw a lot of comments like increase salary, increase bonus. That's an unprofessional language. You don't say increase salaries. Instead of using the word salary or bonuses, the right word is remuneration or reward package. What is the right word? Instead of saying salaries or bonuses, what is the right word? Remuneration or reward? I would say remuneration package. So now, and then instead of saying that increase their salary, can I say ensure that the remuneration is market competitive or competitive? That's more professional, right? Just don't say increase. Make sure that the remuneration is attractive and competitive. Competitive means that it is in line with the market. You should not be less than the market. Wait, Aisha, wait. Right? So then you can, what's the second recommendation? We should ensure that our remuneration, that staff remuneration is attractive and competitive so that they remain motivated okay, simple. Instead of saying increase salary, I'm just saying make sure that our remuneration is attractive, it is competitive, so that our staff are motivated and staff turnover is reduced. I'm just adding some sexy words. Staff turnover is reduced. And probably if you want to add one more, HR should conduct periodic staff surveys to identify issues so that we can address it. Simple. If you want one extra, otherwise, I think that even these two are enough. I'm done with this answer. No need to, in the recommendation, no need to mention the impact in detail because impact we have already mentioned here, just some general thing. Do you understand the approach? We linked with the objective, we talked about the impact, and we just gave some common sense recommendations. 2-3 lines should be enough, Vasu. All right, what is the next one? Land availability. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of land availability? Like, what is the risk land availability? Do we need land? Baba, don't talk about asset or accounting things. Do we need land? Why do we need land?
Yes, of course, we need to build houses.
No, just type. Otherwise, a lot of people will start speaking. We need land because we need land to construct our houses, right? If there is no land, empty land, where the fuck we will make the houses? On our head? What will happen if land, empty land is no more available? How it's going to affect our business or our objective? What will happen if bloody land, no more land is there? It will screw us. We will not be able to build houses. And if you are not able to build houses end of the company. There will be no revenues, and even maybe it can lead to business threat or a going concern, right? So just explain. So it's a business risk. You think the business risk means that the entire business is at risk. So when there is a going concern risk, it is called business risk. Got it? So I think this is a very important risk that, if there is no land available, then we will not be able to construct houses, and hence we will lose all our customers and revenue. This can lead to a going concern threat or a business risk. None of our strategic objectives will be achieved and if there is no land. Got it? Now the important thing. What do you recommend as senior finance manager? So think first. How can we mitigate this risk? Very good. How can we mitigate this? Oh, I'm impressed, guys. On rent, are you serious? Crazy, man. Most of you are saying we should buy land in advance before it runs out. Some of you are saying geographical diversification. Interesting. Geographical diversification. Someone is saying vertical diversification. Interesting. Brokers? What the fuck do you mean by brokers? When there is no land, what the broker will do? Will he bring land from his own pocket? Interesting. Very good points. So just pick up two best recommendations you can think of. Just think of two best mature recommendations. As a senior finance manager, I would suggest that we should try and procure as much land in advance as we can before someone else buys the land and build houses. I think we should try and acquire more lands as much as we can. Someone is saying we should build good relations with government. Yes, because in one of the exhibit it was mentioned that government is the person who's selling lands. So yes, we should maintain or develop strong relationship with the government so that we are able to procure more lands. Don't talk about grants, my boy. What is grant to do with here? Are we a charity? Why would government give us grant? We are a commercial organization. All right. And then maybe we can say, what about geographical diversification? Someone mentioned geographical diversification. So we are already constructing land building in the whole of the country. So what do you mean by geographical diversification? Very good. Going abroad. International divert. Very nice. Why not? Because at some point in time, the lands will finish. Land is limited in supply, right? So I think if we are facing this risk, then it's time to go into international expansion, look for more countries where there is ample land. And then some people are saying build flats instead of houses. Yes, I think that's pretty logical, that if the land is smaller and you want to sell more units, then you build high rises instead of thing. And then someone is saying go into vertical diverse. Anyways, there's a whole range. I'm very happy to look at your answers. Actually, I'm impressed. Now tell me, which chapter will teach you this? Or is it common sense? Is it practical scenario based, or is it some stupid model or chapter? You see, so More than 50% of SBL is like this. Just you need to think, put yourself in the right shoes and start thinking, and automatically logical points will come to your mind. It will improve through practice. So I think let's summarize. I would suggest we try to procure land as much as possible by maintaining strong relations with the local government. We should think for international diversification into other potential countries. We can think of making apartments instead of flats. That's it. Yes, Oves, you're right. But this is one of the options we need to explore, right? What about partnership with landowners? No, Toyin, the land is already with the government. What do you mean by partnership? There's no land available, then forget about partnership, right? Enough, enough. We just need 2 recommendations, enough. Don't get carried away. Are you able to active marketing? Osama, my boy, active marketing beforehand? Fuck, man, we don't have land. How will active marketing will help us purchase land? You guys understand? Okay, let's move to the third risk. Climate change. What is the meaning of climate change? What the hell is this? Meaning of climate change? Global warming, environmental pollution, ozone, carbon emission, all those things, right? Before we go into this, there is one interesting paragraph I had read somewhere. Macroeconomic outlook, was it? Can you open exhibit 4? And on the first page, go to the last paragraph, this one. Go to the last paragraph. Can you read this paragraph? You have 1 minute. So in this paragraph, I can see the impact if we don't follow environmental rules, right? What will be the impact if we don't focus on climate change? If we don't focus on climate change, what's the impact on our business? Fines, penalties, government relationship will be in difficulty, reputational, legal. Yes, absolutely correct. Because the government really is focusing on environmental friendly housing. So if we don't follow their legislations, there could be legal risks, fine, penalties, reputational. What about customers? Do you think customers these days are more conscious about the environment? So environmental friendly, so those customers who are focusing on environmental friendly, they will stop buying our houses, right? So there is a whole bunch of customers who are eco-friendly customers. So we will immediately lose those customers for whom environmental sustainability is an important thing. So if we don't focus on, so can you give me now, summarize to me, what are the 2 major impacts, 2 or 3 major impacts if we don't focus on environment? Just give me 2, 3 major impact on our business if we don't focus. Legal fine, penalties, loss of customers, loss of reputation. Very good, guys. Which objective is being affected? So we have a list of objectives, right? Where is it? Which objective will be directly affected? So I will start my answer by saying that one of our strategic objectives is to support sustainable communities. So if we don't focus on climate changes, we will not be able to achieve this objective. Furthermore, governments are focusing on environmental sustainability. And if we don't follow the regulations, there's a risk of legal fine, penalty, reputational risk. We can also lose customers, especially those customers who are environmentally friendly customers, right? Can you write 2-3 impact? Easy now. There is one more thing. If I look at the case, so you see so much information is there. Look at the annual report. Do you see anything relating to environment? Waste generated per house. So it's increasing. It was 6.06, then it became 6.07, and then it's 6.1. That's good or bad? Waste is increasing. It's bad, right? So you can also quote this statistics that, we are going against the environment. So instead of reducing our wastages, we are actually going in the reverse direction. Yeah. Now, the main question, what do you recommend? How can we mitigate this risk? We need to reduce wastages. Yes, absolutely. We need to investigate why our wastages have gone up, and we should reduce our wastages. What about raw materials? Can we use environmental friendly raw materials? What about equipment? We should use environmental friendly equipment, right? Recycling, recyclable raw materials, and using environmental friendly. How about the houses itself? How about the house design of the houses? Solar technology, recyclables, using alternative energy sources. Wow, using eco-friendly designs. So it will also all start with designing eco-friendly houses, and then using eco-friendly raw materials, eco-friendly equipments, recyclable, reducing our wastages, staff trainings, all these things. Carbon footprint, trying to reduce carbon, absolutely correct. So if I read this economic outlook report, they have mentioned something here that more sustainable houses, new technologies, deliver sustainable houses, like what? For example, solar energy systems, internet connected smart homes. So we can use these words in our answer in order to link with the scenario. Interesting question. Did you learn? Okay, so let me recap. Let me summarize that. Number one, there's a format involved. To make sure you give a good format. Let me delete all this objectives now. So there's a good format. Then I use the tabular format because there was risk and recommendation. There were 3 risks, 1, 2, and 3. I was asked to talk about the impact and link with the objective. So I mentioned the objective, I mentioned the impact, and then I was expected to talk about recommendation. So I gave some relevant practical recommendations, how we can reduce the risk. Very common sense question. And if you recall what Rahul mentioned, that he used to put himself in three people's shoes. One was the shoes of the examiner, so we saw what the examiner wanted. One was the shoes of the person we are writing to, so we saw how we can add value to the chairman. Our point should, give him some good information, and my role as well. So you understand the approach? Okay, so this is one guy, Usman. I cannot take verbal questions because it's a global webinar. Usman, you can write your question in the chat box and I will answer it. Sajna, basically what Rahul said was put yourself in the shoes, right? So put yourself in the senior finance manager's shoes and start thinking. Put yourself in the shoes of the chairman and start thinking what he expects, right? So don't think like a student. Always think like a CFO or a senior finance person or an external consultant. Put yourself in their shoes and automatically logical answers and solutions will start coming to your mind. Yes, Anishushi, absolutely correct. Yes, Anishushi. Daniel, I will cover this tomorrow. Yes, Usman. Sir, was that skilled labor? Okay. Rizkan is asking, was the skilled labor just 1 point? I will repeat, everybody is asked a very interesting question. Rizkan is asking, was the skilled labor 1 point? So this point is 1 point. No, my boy, this is at least 2 points. Okay, because we talked about so many impact, right? We talked about the objective, we gave so many impacts here, we gave training days and the impact. I will consider as 2 points because we have touched upon so many things. This is not 1 point. Just count the number of paragraphs. Each point is a paragraph. And here also, this is 1 recommendation. No, this is 3 recommendations. And if it's too short, at least it's equivalent to 2 recommendations. So 2 points here, 2 points here. So it's 4 points. Got it? Now someone is asking, how do we know which exhibit to read? How do we know which exhibits are relevant? Because in this question, I actually guided you where to look for, right? I will cover this tomorrow in my exam techniques portion, all right? That how we can link, how we can identify. Okay, any more questions? How do we conclude this answer? There is no requirement of concluding. We just complete these 3 points and that's it. Closed. I think so, Alex. Did we do the professional skills? Yes, we did. Because if you read the requirement, if you read the guidance, pros and cons, by clearly assessing the impact and required action. So yes, we clearly talked about the impact, which is the negatives, and when we gave recommendations, those are the positives or the solutions, right? So yeah, evaluation skill is done. So it was a 15-mark question. And there were 3 points, 3 risks, so 5 marks each. So I think we did pretty well. In fact, it's a bit lengthy for 5 marks, these two together, but it's okay. please write in paragraph form, not bullet form. Okay. Try to use small paragraphs rather than bullets. Akshi, I will cover that tomorrow. Yes, Sajna, absolutely correct. Stay away from revision kits. Yes, I think we are done for today. Just let me go through my slide. Okay, and then the revision classes. So if you think that today's practice really helped you, then you must join my revision classes starting from 9th May. Those of you who are already enrolled in regular or resit, you don't have to. But those of you who are thinking, if you enjoyed today's drafting and discussion session, which we just did, then you must join the revision classes, because that's how the revision classes will be. All right. So guys, I will join with you tomorrow. We are already 30 more minutes extra into the time. So I will see you guys tomorrow. And very important, because I will start with exam techniques and technical articles, and then we will solve another question like today. And then we will summarize and talk about the exam plan and study plan for the next 3 weeks. All right. So please, guys, see you guys tomorrow. Take care and good night.